Hi there, this is Elaine Jarvis, and I'm here on behalf of Project Protect Inmate. And I've been talking to Charlotte Bailey Carter, who is a civil rights activist here in Virginia. And we're talking about the Mustafa Aljazairi case. And I've been asking Charlotte some questions because she was able to talk with Glenn Ford, who was the former possible boyfriend of the deceased Dorothy. And he also was around the night of the accident and was having a lot of conversations with the family, the children, and the interesting thing is Charlotte actually got to speak to Glenn Ford, and when she spoke to him, he volunteered a lot of information on tape. So, coming back to where we were, I think the scene is July 27th, 2024, and this is outside the MGM Casino by the National Harbor, which for those of you who might not be locals, is near or about Alexandria, Virginia. So Charlotte, please take us to what you know after talking to Glenn Ford.
I know that he knew what kind of car Mustafa drove. I know that he spoke about working on Dorothy's car to fix it and also to clean it out on more than one occasion at some car cleaner place near their apartment complex.
So he worked on Dorothy's car. Did he ever talk about Mustafa's car?
Yes, he said that Mustafa would drive like a bat out of hell. He said that he thought he was so cool in his, I think it's like a Chrysler or something.
It's a Chrysler, correct?
Yes, it's Chrysler something, and he said that he thought that he was so cool in it, would drive it loudly and screech out of the parking lot as if, trying to lead to the he's got driving.
Okay, speed. So just for the record, Mustafa does not have any convictions for speeding nor for reckless driving. So what are you thinking about that whole bat out of hell?
I felt like he was trying to convince me.
Gotcha.
Honestly, because I remember saying to him, well, I have so many speeding tickets that I pay $550 a month in car insurance. And the DMV once sent me a letter saying if I got another ticket, they would suspend my license. I said, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to drive into oncoming traffic.
On purpose,
or that I'm so reckless of a driver that I'm putting other people's lives at risk.
Gotcha. So is this a story that...
I was trying to get him to see reason, I pull out of parking spots fast, and he just seemed more irritated that I wasn't eating what he was trying to sell me.
Accepting his story.
Yes. He also...
So Glenn Ford, he lives next to or a couple apartments away from...
He lives with his mother now, I believe.
Lives with his mother, but at the time of the alleged accident... it wasn't an alleged accident.
He was a resident first in that apartment complex.
Gotcha. So Dorothy moved into that apartment to live near him.
She lived with him there first, and then she got an apartment with Mustafa in the same building.
This gets so messy.
Where you could, by Glenn Ford's, telling me that you could see into Glenn Ford's living room or bedroom from Mustafa and Dorothy's bedroom. Okay,
so Dorothy lives with this Glenn Ford. And then she moves out, and then she's living with Mustafa. Is that correct?
She then applies for an apartment while with Mustafa to live in the same complex. Yes.
Okay. And what else about this Glenn Ford?
He I felt like he was very much in love with Dorothy. Okay. And I felt like every time I mentioned it, he would try and deny it. But I think he was jealous, and he was trying to paint a more arrogant picture as if she was obsessed with him. But I can tell you, as a woman, no woman behaves like that and chases after a man that does not give us just reason to feel like we can be that way with you.
Okay.
No, it just doesn't happen. He gave her some reason to believe that it was appropriate to text him, I can see you while in bed.
Gotcha.
And to be with him multiple times while her boyfriend that she lived with didn't know, and he was caring for her children.
You're talking about Mustafa.
Mustafa would be caring for her children, and she would be with him cleaning out the car, or he fixed her car once, or
Okay, Glenn Ford fixed Dorothy's car once.
yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
he tried to make Mustafa look bad because why did I have to fix her car?
Okay.
And he said that Mustafa sold stolen medical products out of the trunk of his car. I said, what the hell are you talking about? What medical products, and where did he steal them from? He couldn't answer that. He was trying very hard to make Mustafa look bad, and I think it was frustrating him that I was not, and I was questioning it. That I said, this doesn't make sense.
So is Glenn Ford a suspect, or is he the government's star witness?
He's a suspect to me, but I think he's the government's star witness. He managed to get off on all of his charges.
What charges?
I believe he had several possession, maybe, I am just from my recollection, possession with the intent to distribute, charges that would have carried several years in jail or prison if he was found guilty, and somehow they were just null prost.
Okay. What else can you tell us about Glenn Ford from what you've learned of him and about him from your conversations with him?
That he struggles with addiction, that he trashed the mother, Dorothy, in one conversation, and then would in the next conversation say that she was amazing, so I couldn't really figure out what was going on, but he said that she was a prostitute. He said that he suggested she prostituted her children out, but then when I questioned that further, he said, well, no, they would just be present. And then he said something with the oldest daughter he thinks might have happened, but he did not open up about that. He said that he had drug problems. He denied Dorothy having any drug problems or addiction issues, specifically with pills or heroin. So
in other words, he gave two completely opposing views of Dorothy. And there's so many things that I'm struggling not to say because I'm under a protective order.
Yes. Well, I'm not. But I think that the police, I don't know what contact Glenn Ford had with the police prior to them honing in on Mustafa as their one and only suspect and not considering any other possibility at all, and really not, in my opinion, doing any investigatory work at all.
Gotcha.
My opinion is that it's very likely or possible that Glenn Ford put this idea, as he tried so hard to put in my mind, into others' minds, whether it be the babysitter or the police.
Which idea are you
and
talking
the children
about?
That Mustafa was abusive, that he drove into oncoming traffic on purpose, that
let's talk about the driving into oncoming traffic on purpose. So how realistic is it that Mustafa would have driven into oncoming traffic?
Personally, I don't think it's realistic at all. Additionally,
was Mustafa wearing a seatbelt?
I don't recall, but I know that people were saying he's guilty because he had a stoic face. As someone who's a horrible driver myself, which is not the case for Mustafa, I can say that, for example, once I accidentally did not stop at a stop sign. I had my daughter, I had my boyfriend's daughter, and one of my boys in my car.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that my face was stoic. Not 1 ounce of emotion or other thoughts went through my head as I, at the last minute, prevented myself and veered around this car I would have been at fault because I ran the stop sign to miss this vehicle going at, moderately high speeds, maybe 45 miles an hour. Not one emotion ran through me. In fact, it was deep concentration, and I'm sure that my face looked just like Mustafa's did in that video. Because all I'm thinking about is what I need to do last minute. You don't get emotional when you're responding in an emergency. In fact, it's the last thing that you do.
So
Emotions come afterwards.
that makes complete sense to me. I've been in a couple high speed accidents myself, and I haven't seen the videos from them, but I know that I was just focused on trying to avoid the accident. But coming back to your story, and you said that Glenn Ford was pushing a story.
Yes.
What's Glenn Ford's story?
Glenn Ford's story is that Mustafa was an abusive boyfriend who abused Dorothy, and that he had warned Dorothy she needed to get out or she was going to be killed. But whenever I asked if he had ever witnessed this or had any evidence, the answers were no. On one hand, he loved the children and felt so bad for them. And then they even know that Mustafa did it. But on the other hand, they're horrible children. And
Okay.
she's a horrible mother. And
So he's
I think that he convinced those children that
Do you-
Mustafa did it. When these children were just lost their mother and their baby sister.
okay.
And I can tell you, I have 2 boys that are older than my youngest daughter, and there's nothing that they care more about than their baby sister. Talk about traumatized. They don't have, my understanding, a relationship with their biological father, okay? They were very easily to be manipulated in that moment, and I believe that that's what Glenn Ford did.
You believe that Glenn Ford manipulated or coached the children to talk?
Absolutely.
And do you believe that that was before he talked to the police?
I don't know when he talked to the police, but yeah, absolutely I do, because he pretended not to know Mustafa or Dorothy. And he immediately goes to the children, and I think even another possibility is that he realized, oh shit, if he did tamper with Mustafa's car, and then realizes in this moment that, oops, Dorothy and Empress were in the vehicle, self-preservation comes in, and he needs to do everything to get any inkling of an idea that he had something to do with it off of him. And what better way to do that than to paint Mustafa out to be a cold-blooded killer who drove into oncoming traffic and was abusive to children whose minds just want a reason, why did I lose my mom and my sister?
It always is something that a family is looking for, which is closure. In Dorothy's case, I don't think she's ever, or her family's ever gotten closure. And I can tell you, as the attorney for Mustafa Aljazairi, he's been sitting in jail for 17 months, and he has no closure. He grieves every day for the loss of Dorothy and Empress. And in the meantime, he's fighting for his life.
I've actually spoken to people. I frequently do this in my area for activism work. Whenever somebody's arrested and either there's allegations they were beat up by the police, or that there was maybe some issues, procedural or misconduct surrounding their arrest, Getting Out is an app that you can download to speak to almost most Virginia jails participate in this, and you buy messages. They're like 50 cents or 25 cents each, and I'll just go talk to them on there. I'll make sure I tell them, listen, don't speak about your case, because they're going to read this. Don't speak to anyone but your lawyer about it.
Sure.
But I'll make friends with them while they're in there. And I started adding random people inside of the Prince William County Manassas jail, and some of them were familiar with Mustafa. Not one of them that was familiar with them had anything but great things to say, how he's helpful. He helps the other inmates. If they hadn't met him personally, they had heard of him. And not one bad thing was said. But I can tell you, they had lots of bad things to say about the COs. How they will not allow you to fill grievances out. I was told by one inmate who's now been released, his nickname is Cowboy. He said that when you ask to file a grievance, they tell you that, oh, we don't have any down here. Oh, we need to get copies. Oh, we ran out. They will not allow you to file a grievance. That if you do file a grievance, one inmate's girlfriend called to complain or to say that they needed to add some books to the library because he had read all of them. The next day, a female CO went into his cell, they say, and removed and took all of his books.
That's cruel.
As punishment for just saying, hey, get some more books. One inmate says that he was, I believe, handcuffed and either tasered or pepper sprayed while in some sort of restraints already because he filed grievances.
I've also spoken to a few inmates and can corroborate those stories and can add stories of my own. That
many were scared to talk to me.
Yes.
Because, well, they either said I was a fed or that they were worried about repercussions.
We have the same problem. We're trying to set a preliminary injunction hearing, and I'm afraid to give the prison the name of the inmates that we need to subpoena because I'm afraid they're going to fall and trip on water or a non-existent piece of thread on their way to appear in court.
I think that these COs have shown that that's very serious, that's a very likely concern, that you should be concerned because they literally have no repercussion, they have no accountability, they have no oversight, they can do whatever they want in there. This is like the wild, wild west where, they're the rulers and everybody else is do as I say or
Suffer.
Literally suffer. Not just you'll have to suffer, we will beat you. We will put you in isolation. I mean, there were inmates that weren't even in isolation.
Yes.
Who said they had not seen the light of day for months.
Yes, I've heard that too. I've spoken to at least 3 different inmates that have either been in solitary
staffing.
Yes, but I've spoken to several inmates that have been in solitary confinement for 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. Those are 3 different people right off the top of my head. That's insane. And what's really insane is 2 out of 3 of those inmates were pre-trial detainees, which means they're innocent men. I mean, that is a thing in America. We are innocent until we are proven guilty.
I think the current trend for prosecutors that have no skill is to stack charges, especially when the investigation is weak at best. And then they torture you and they leave you in there. I mean, I know that just facing misdemeanors, that I knew there was no way possible that at least upon appeal to a more credible court, I would be found guilty. It was so stressful. The possibility of being found guilty or being put in jail. Now imagine being in jail where you're under these conditions and you are offered, hey, if you just
sing like a canary,
no contest to this one charge, we'll let you out and you won't do another day.
Yep.
This is what they want to do with Mustafa. And that's what I think truly. They're trying to keep him in there and torture him for as long as possible so that they want his family to go away. They want him to feel alone, that he has nobody. That's why they won't allow him phone calls. And they want him to think there's nobody cares about him. And they want him to be so desperate for just regular treatment for the things.
To be able to take a shower while not being in hackles, in leg irons.
To be able to sit in the sun for a couple hours. To be able to speak with his family.
Yes.
To be able to practice his religion without being punished or ridiculed or tricked into and it's saying he's not that religion. To be able to have constitutional rights, which America is supposed to pride itself on. They want him, their plan is to keep him there and torture him until they believe that he will say, okay, F it. I'll plead.
I'll plead and you'll give me time served. So
at least I get out of here and this is behind me. But no, it's not.
It never will be.
It never will be.
So, I am so grateful that you came on. I really am grateful for the work that you do, Charlotte. And I hope that you'll come and talk to us again on
Absolutely.
Project Protect Inmate.
Free Mustafa.
Free Mustafa. And once again, would you mind give us, or I've got it right in front of me, TikTok. Please look for RIC, Persian Princess.
Twitter is Cha-Cha Persian.
Twitter, Cha-Cha Persian. And any last thoughts?
We all need to stand up together. Be angry. You need to be.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening, and God bless you.